Welcome on stage, Ram Jethmalani and Shobhaa. This session is Devil's Advocate Ram Jethmalani in conversation with Madhu Trehan, who will arrive very soon, hopefully, and introduced by Shobhaa. This session is presented by DNA. Have fun.
Some Sindhi name I don't know. believe you me.
Good afternoon. It's so fantastic to see this crowd for the legal legend Ram Jethmalani himself. We have the Chief Justice with us this afternoon. Thank you, sir. And the best news of all, we have so many law students who've come to hear Ram. Now, Ram, as we all know, is delightful, incorrigible, impossible. He is a fearless, has always been a fearless lawyer. I'd like to say that he can get away with murder, or at any rate, he can get people out of it if they are indeed accused of murder. He'll always find a way. There have been landmark cases that he has handled, and I'm just so proud to be the publisher of his book. It's called The Rebel. It's written by a lady, an American lady called Dr. Susan Edelman. She and her husband Marty, who's an intellectual properties lawyer in the US, have been friends of Ram Jethmalani and his family for over 40 years. Susan was very inspired by Ram's life and his work, and the kind of dedication and commitment that she's brought to the book is something that we can all learn a little from. She studied over 400 cases before she even began writing the book. She has analyzed not just some of the landmark cases that Ram was involved with, but has also given us incredible insights and glimpses and perspectives into Ram's life. Ram, as all of you here know, he is someone who is truly larger than life. He has dominated the scene for 92 years. He always lies a little about his age. I believe it's 93, but he prefers to call it 92.
Darling, it is 91.
Just before we got onto the stage, some people wanted to take pictures of him and me together. And he turns around and he says, "Darling, make them as compromising as you possibly can." That's Ram for you. And I have to warn you, there's lots of very beautiful ladies in the audience. They've all come to see you, hear you, Ram, meet you. But it comes with a small warning. Ram thinks age protects him and he can get away with anything with the beautiful ladies. So when he meets a lady, any lady actually, he naturally leans forward to wish her, and before she knows it, he has said, "Hello, darling," and kissed her straight on the mouth. So far, nobody has objected. I've seen it happen many times, and it's to his credit that the charm of the man is such. He started his career, he was first class first. He started his career actually at age 17, at a time when in Karachi, where he was born, where he studied, they didn't allow him to practice because he was underage. And he would have had to wait till he was 21, or at any rate 18, before he could actually take up his first case. But such was his brilliance and such was his determination that he turned around and he said, I'm not going to wait, you'd better change the law and you'd better change the rules. And they did. I mean, that's Ram. That's Ram at 17, that's Ram at 90 plus. So we've done a book launch in Mumbai where Susan was with us that morning, and she made the mistake of talking about herself and the process of writing the book and how long it took her to write it and how much has gone into it, and the crowd was getting restless. Everybody had come to listen to Ram. So I'm not going to be Susan this afternoon. I know you're here to listen to Ram, so I'd like to just start by welcoming you, sir, and it's wonderful to have you. In a way, you identify very closely with Jaipur, and Jaipur clearly loves you. So would you like to say something to them about those early years, or would you like to start off bang with the most controversial case that you were involved with? I'd say start with the controversial case.
Now, do you mind reminding me of the most controversial case that you have read about?
There are so many, Ram. I don't know where to begin where you're concerned. Or shall I ask you a delicate question, because you can handle it, you can handle anything.
Sure.
When you were expelled from the BJP, which was not too long ago, why did that happen and how did you feel about it?
Well, the elections were nearing, and I believe that there were too many persons inside the BJP who wanted to become prime ministers of this country. They were all rivals amongst themselves, but only on one issue they were united, and that issue on which they got united was that Ram has to be silenced and he has to be, at the present moment, thrown out from the party. So they served a notice on me for expulsion. Oh, I'm glad you are here, darling. I'm doing your job for a change. Well, I had decided, after great analysis, investigation, collection of evidence, that none of them was qualified, and I on one side and they all combined on the other, I was superior. But I said it at a public meeting. And that public meeting, on the front seat was sitting Mr. Narendra Modi, the present Prime Minister, and of course Arun Jethmalani, his Finance Minister, and then there was the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister, Mr. Nadu. So when I told the collection of students, most of them were young people who had come there along with their professors, about 10,000 of them were present in the hall. And when I said that after great investigation, I say that I am superior to all of these aspirants combined, then I paused for a minute, and after that I said, but except one person, and that is Mr. Narendra Modi.
Can I start?
It's all yours.
It immediately produced a great applause. And I am very happy that I said it, and that is the main reason why I have been expelled from the party, which I don't care.
And you've been expelled a couple of times, right?
No, that's a false statement.
Really?
Yeah.
In this book, published by Shobhaa, you
No,
must buy it,
no,
all of you.
No. It's not what Sue has said. What has been said is by these opponents of mine who don't know anything about the facts. I have never been expelled before. I have resigned once.
Now, I will start with a description of Ram given by his brother-in-law, Mohan Shahani. He said he can describe Ram in just a few words. He is the most generous person he has ever known, even to his enemies. He has an extraordinary sense of humor. He suffers fools gladly. Thank you. He has an extraordinary sense of humor. Yeah. He has tremendous energy and a phenomenal amount of courage. He has no pride. When he stays with his sister Maya in Mumbai, he does not even trouble her for a cup of tea. Money means nothing to him. This author might comment that the only financial planning anyone can remember him interested in was an attractive financial planner. Mohan says he uses his legal acumen to win political battles and his political strength to win legal cases, and he is absolutely dedicated to his law students. And this many people don't know enough about, that Mr. Jethmalani was involved in setting up of the Bangalore Law School and University. My daughter is one of the beneficiaries. She went to Bangalore Law School and is a practicing lawyer now. He changed how law is taught in this country from a piddling 2-year course where you just wasted your time. 5 years in Bangalore Law School, you are grilled to a point where all of them come out crack lawyers. And it's all because of this gentleman here. He changed the face of the legal education in this country. On the first day, they're thrown into a moot court. It is amazing what he's done there. I continue here. He might add that he is a lover. And this theme goes on throughout the book, his love of women. Thank God, Mr. Jethmalani, I'm too old for you. Oh no, I feel sorry that I'm too old for you. Why thank God? I feel sorry that I'm old for you.
I think you are a little too young for me.
He thrives in the public eye, and he is the patriarch of his entire extended family. My husband, that's the author's husband, says that above all, Ram is a teacher. And I have to also add that the Quora website, which most of you young people would be familiar with in California, voted Ram Jethmalani as the most badass lawyer in India.
That's a huge compliment, Ram. Just take a bow.
Yeah.
That's in today's language good.
Yeah.
Now, I have to tell you that, as you know, he's upfront, he's always in some controversy. In fact, when he was invited to address some jurists in London, he arrived over there and he said, I was expecting an odor of sanctity. Instead, I find an odor of mothballs. He told them. What odor do you get from this Jaipur audience?
Wonderful fragrance.
In his childhood, he was a star debater in school. He had a crush at the age of 7 on a girl called Dolly in school, and they had remained friends until she died at the age of 80. He went to law college in 1939, graduated in 1941 at 17, and started practice at 18. At that time, there was a law that you could not practice until you were 21. So what Mr. Jethmalani did was he went to the British official and argued his first case, I think, and said that, could you tell them the story?
Yes, I got my LLB degree at the age of 17 because I had quadruple promotions at the school age and so on. Then when I applied for my enrollment, they confronted me with this rule of 21. So I argued my first case before the Chief Justice of Sir Godfrey Davis. He was supposed to be the nastiest judge the British Empire had produced. But I appeared before him, unaided by any other lawyer, and I made an argument. I told him that this rule did not exist when I joined the law college. My father would not have allowed me to join the law college if he had known that I would not be able to do anything for the support of the family for 4 years. So Sir Godfrey said, young man, you have made a good point. The point in simple lawyer's words is that you cannot give to laws retrospective operation. A law which did not exist at the time when I decided to take to the law course. Well, he called the bar council guys and told them, he says, listen, I request you to amend your rules, and in your rules say that in suitable cases you will make an exception. They did it. Then he called me, he says, young man, now you go and apply under that exception. I applied under that exception. They had no option but to grant me an enrollment for the simple reason that in that sprawling University of Bombay in those days, because Sindh was still a part of Bombay Presidency, it had no university of its own, and the Bombay University, which consisted of Bombay, Maharashtra, Gujarat, part of Karnataka and a part of Hyderabad. In that sprawling university, I had had the distinction of getting a first class first. So they enrolled me without the slightest problem, but they put one condition. Rascals they were. They said, but you are still a minor. Your contracts are void. If your contracts are void, how the hell can you enter into a contractual arrangement with your clients? So they finally resolved that I shall be enrolled the day I become 18, which mercifully is the age of majority under the Indian Majority Act. So I was enrolled at the age of 18, and believe you me, I must be running a good star at that time. I'm a believer in palmistry and astrology and numerology and all these things. And I must be running a very, very good period that I did my masters and so on, and I have made a great success.
You're not sure about God. You believe in all those things, but he's giving God the benefit of the doubt so far.
Well, I can tell you that I have a quarrel to pick with you because you have called me in this program that you have published, the Devil's Advocate. Now, who is responsible for this?
Sanjoy. Totally.
You better come here and face a little cross-examination.
It's a terrible title because I'm sure the first Devil's Advocate, the first thing that goes into your mind is, in people's mind, is Karan Thapar, and I am so far from him.
No. You don't know that two of the best lawyers of the world were called Devil's Advocates.
Were you one of them?
No, I am not. That is why I am not quarreling with you.
So let's go back to your
now
story.
Let me tell you who. The first person who earned that appellation from people was that famous American lawyer Clarence Darrow. You will be amazed to know that in a civilized country like the United States of America, it was a criminal offense for a person to teach Darwin's theory of evolution in any school or college. I mean, they are such an advanced civilization, yet they did not permit this scientific doctrine, and a great scientific doctrine, to be taught to the students. So somebody, I think his name was Scopes, so I mistake not, forget the name probably, but he decided that he will defy that law. And then after giving notice to the authorities, he taught the law there in his school and courted a prosecution. And the person who was called to defend him was the great American lawyer called Clarence Darrow. Clarence Darrow said that I am going to defend this man. And he was dubbed by the American public, of course, the wrong part of the American public, as the Devil's Advocate, because this fellow had defied not only the American law, but he had defied the biblical account of creation. Biblical account supported by the Quranic account, because Quran literally has borrowed the same view of creation, the Adam and Eve story. So Clarence Darrow appeared for this man, and the prosecution had put in the witness box PW number 1, Mr. Father Brand, who believed literally in every word of the Bible. So Darrow got up to cross-examine him. He says, Father, you seriously tell me that you believe every word literally that is uttered in the Quran, or in the Bible? Oh, he said, yes, I do. He said, Father, you seriously believe that there was a serpent in the Garden of Eden who walked out of the grass and hissed bad advice in the ear of Mother Eve? He said, yes, I do. He says, Father, you also believe that God cursed him for this sin, and since then the snake has been crawling on his belly. He says, I do. He says, Father, Have you any notion as to how the serpent walked before he was cursed? Father Brian collapsed into the box. he could, what could he say about how did he walk? He has to crawl with the kind of shape that God has given him. So you see that again that in the law books it is called the monkey trial. It's called the monkey trial. It's also called the Scopes trial. Scopes was the accused. But it was a great performance of Clarence Darrow. Now the second case was a lawyer who probably deserved that name in a sense, because there were 12 women who had complained. This handsome young man called, forget his name, one of you will remember the name. He used to seduce a woman, live with her for nearly a year, and then one day he will decamp with all her movable property, that which is removable easily. And at his trial, 12 women said that he is the man who seduced me. He's not only lived with me for 12 months so that he had full opportunity of identifying her, identifying the culprit, and nobody believed that he was not guilty. So the man was convicted, sentenced to a huge sentence of imprisonment. But after his imprisonment, these offenses again started happening. There was only one person who believed, and that was the devil's advocate, his lawyer. And he was keeping a watch on what was happening in the criminal society of England. And they found that another person was committing the same kind of offenses. He was arrested, and that man made a full confession, not only of the offenses which he had committed, but also he said that I have committed the offenses for which you have sent that poor man to jail who is rotting in jail. The British government made an inquiry and came to the conclusion that yes, that man was innocent, and this is the rascal who made a full-blooded confession of those offenses as well as his own. And the British government not only pardoned him, they gave him a huge monetary compensation. That is the British kind of justice that you are talking about. Now, this was another devil's advocate number 2 who established completely the innocence of a really innocent man. So I am not very unhappy that you have called me the devil's advocate. But devil's advocates are good advocates, I assure you. And frankly, between God and devil, I have some respect for devil.
Why?
I'll tell. Now that also requires to be explained. The universe has existed for real billions of years. The calculation is that it has existed for about 12 billion years. Has God ever talked to you once? Why? God only talks to us through his representatives on earth, and those representatives are also not those who get a vakalatnama from God. They are self-appointed. Somebody says that I am the son of God. You are the son of God, but then who is the woman which produced you? Simple one word of cross-examination. They invented the theory of immaculate conception. I don't believe it. I don't believe it at all. And I believe that with so much evil and so much of poverty, suffering on this planet, why does God allow this kind of a situation to go on? And look at now the modern terrorism and the kind of murders which are taking place. You saw Paris, you saw Peshawar. What is happening to this world? Why is God tolerating all this nonsense? What will you, if you were a juror sitting in a trial of God, what will be your inference? Common sense inference. The common sense inference is that he doesn't exist. But I have an alternative theory for God. If he does exist, then he is suffering from an acute and incurable Alzheimer.
And sadism,
Having,
you said.
having created us, he has forgotten all about us.
You also said he's a sadist.
Yes?
You've also said that he's a sadist.
Or that he's a sadist. There are these Epicurean philosophers of ancient Greece. They asked God two questions. Are you prepared to stop evil on this planet? If you are prepared to stop, then why is it not stopping? Are you able to stop it? If you are able to stop it, then why are you not stopping it? God has still not answered these two questions. And until and unless I get satisfactory answers to these two questions, either of the two hypotheses will remain. Either he doesn't exist or he has forgotten all about us.
Mr. Jethmalani, I would like, for the sake of this very young audience, they see you as this very successful lawyer at this stage because they have not known how, they do not know how hard it was for you when you started. If you could take us back to Karachi, when you lived through the riots, when people, mobs were coming to your door, you had sent your family to Bombay, and you were there protecting the property, and how, could you tell the story of how you borrowed a clerk's Muslim cap and ran through and drove through the crowd?
Now I must tell you the tragedy of India's partition. India's partition was not brought about by the vote of Muslims who reside or who resided then in the area which has become Pakistan. It is the votes of Muslims residing in the rest of India which produced Pakistan and partition. Speaking of the Muslim in Sindh, where I was born and where I have passed my childhood and where I became a qualified lawyer, and I practiced law in Karachi for 6 years after that, I can tell you that we had developed such a wonderful synthesis of Islam and Hinduism that when I was young, I used to get my new clothes on Eid day, and Muslim children, they used to get their new clothes on Deepavali day. Not one Sindhi Hindu was killed by a Sindhi Muslim during the course of these partition riots, when rivers of blood were flowing elsewhere in India, in Punjab, in Bengal, and other parts of the country. But still, what happened in Sindh is that some people, finding that Sindh is a very prosperous state, it had become prosperous state after 1935, when the Indus was sort of a barrage was broken and constructed, and canals were dug on both sides, and agriculture sort of grew up like anything that you can imagine. And Sindh was a prosperous country. People from Bihar and other places came there and shouting, "Intiqam, intiqam, revenge, revenge, revenge," revenge for what had happened to them in India. And that's the fear which made some people take the precautionary step of leaving. I believed sincerely that it was a temporary madness. That is why my old father, grandfather, my children were all sent away from Karachi. But I continued to practice law alone, sitting there. And ultimately, things took a bad turn after about 6 months. In February 1948, riots started in the city of Karachi. I was arguing a case in the magistrates' court, city magistrates' court in Karachi. And when, in those days, these taxis hardly existed. They were a very rare phenomenon and a very expensive phenomenon. We used to use these Victoria carriages, not the small Tangas, but the Victorias. So there used to be a Pathan driver who was my habitually employed driver, who used to sort of take me around wherever I wanted to go. And he walked into the magistrate's court and he just pulled my gown and he said, "Sir, something is happening in the whole city and the place where you are living is itself under attack. So let's go." So I took leave of the magistrate and went there, and I found that it was so. But the good people who were residing, some of them were Muslims, who told them that no Hindu is residing in these buildings, so they went away. So there was a curfew for 18-20 days. We used to take up arms at night and stand on the public roads to defend ourselves. And believe you me, we had the police on our side because the police was by no means communal. And after the curfews were over, on the 18th of February, I remember, I left Karachi when my partner, who was a Muslim, told me that, Ram, I can't now take the guarantee of your security. So we parted as great friends, and I started my practice in the city of Bombay. But so good was this Indian Sindhi Muslim, my ex-partner, that his practice grew up by leaps and bounds because all Hindu lawyers left, and he used to write to me and telephone to me that, Ram, whatever I am earning is yours. What do you want? And I will tell him to know. His name was Mr. Broi. I said, Broi, I am trying my manhood in India, and I want nothing from you. And the only time I drew something from him was when we all Sindhis live beyond our means, you know, so I purchased a car. And the fellow was selling a car to me, wanted money in Karachi. So I just telephoned to Broi. I said, Broi, I bought a car and you pay for it. And he paid for it. That's the only time that I have drawn. I have been on my own in Bombay, and believe you me, I have rescued my whole family from the refugee camps where they were, and I have grown to be a fairly successful lawyer
When you came back from...
with great velocity, I must tell you. But I must also confide to you that though I make tons of money at the bar, I make it from 10% of my clients. My 90% work is still pro bono.
Pro bono. When you had sent your family, Durga and the children, to Bombay then, to stay with her family, with her parents.
Yeah.
But when you came to Bombay and saw your parents and grandfather in the refugee camp and saw the terrible, terrible conditions they were living in, one of the things I believe you said was that you swore you would never be poor again.
Well, you are right. I rescued them from there, and I took a house in Pune, and I made them very comfortable in the city of Pune. And believe you me, I started earning, except the first month. The first month I earned 30 rupees because I wrote 3 notices, 10 rupees each.
But your rent was 105 rupees. Your rent at Carvalho Guest House was
Yes.
105 rupees,
Yes,
and
100.
he was living on bread and milk. That's it, and a banana was a treat.
Well, we have gone through that life, and I'm glad that we have survived, not with the assistance of God, but with the assistance of my fellow beings.
But you became famous in 1949, or in your book it says notorious, I'm being euphemistic. You became famous when you defended the dacoits who looted the Bruce Street. It was known as the Bruce Street
Bruce
dacoity.
Street
That was when
dacoity.
your first criminal splash.
Yeah, now, look, people ask me that please tell us, how did you succeed as a lawyer? And what is success due to in life in general? So my answer is that it is partly luck. Because certain things happen in your life which did not happen in the life of more deserving people. But the second is your equipment. When luck favors you and an opportunity arises, you should have the intellectual and physical capacity to handle that opportunity and make some good use of that opportunity. So it is partly luck, it is partly your equipment, and fortunately, one of the things that happened in Bombay, a young lawyer who had taken up 4 dacoity cases, all notorious. One was the bank dacoity, Lakshmi Temple dacoity, and Bruce Road dacoity, and all those dacoities. He had taken them up free. But then he was taken into the administrative service. So the clients had paid some little money to him. He didn't have it to return to the clients. So he called me, he said, Ram, will you take up these cases? I said, with the greatest pleasure, I will take up your 4 cases. I did all the 4 cases, I did them free. In the first case, I got the client acquitted, and the car in which the dacoity had been committed was released to my client, and he made a gift of that car to me.
Madhu, may I ask him a couple of questions?
Yeah,
May I
I just want to ask a follow-up, and certainly.
Yeah.
You have said, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said that when a dishonest person walks in for my help, why should I not relieve him of his money? Is that correct?
Listen, it doesn't mean that every rich man who has perpetrated fraud on some poor man and comes over for my help, there is no reason why I should not take money from him.
Absolutely. You've also said that Ram teaches his students that the great milestones of the law have not been laid in cases of respectable people, but with those who are disreputable.
True. It is true. It is an American experience. You ask American lawyer, ask an Indian lawyer. Now, for example, when Mrs. Gandhi wanted to destroy India's constitution and freedom of people and have the emergency, what did they do? The first thing they did was that they arrested all so-called smugglers and marched them through the streets. And this was done without the authority of law. And I was at that time the editor of the Law College magazine, and I wrote an article that this is the beginning of dictatorship in this country. Now they are trying to acclimatize the people to this kind of a bad law and bad kind of law enforcement, and soon enough these laws will be used not against smugglers but against political opponents.
And there was a warrant for arrest for you?
That actually happened. That is how the emergency was, that the day Mrs. Gandhi declared the emergency, every decent political leader was taken to jail. And in the city of Nasik, alone in the jail, there were 202 lawyers in the Nasik jail alone. There were thousands and thousands of innocent people rotting in India's jails because Mrs. Gandhi wanted to save her throne. And the throne, which had been endangered by what? Endangered by the judgment of the High Court, which held her guilty of having practiced the serious election offense during her election campaign. She deserved to go, she should have resigned. But there were evil people like her stupid son, Sanjay, who advised her that don't go, mama. Don't go.
Would you like to tell, one second.
Now,
Would you like to tell the story
now,
of how you went when
I
you...
was the chairman of the Bar Council of India at that time, elected chairman, and I said to myself that I have to resist this, come what may. The Kerala Bar was having its annual function in somewhere in Palghar, somewhere in Kerala and Tamil Nadu border, but the border town, but in Kerala. I was the chairman of the bar, so I was invited there. I was on the desk when I was on the stage, and with me were some very senior lawyers, even from Delhi, sitting with me. And in the audience, I found that the police commissioner was there, some district magistrate was there. And when I made my thundering speech attacking Mrs. Gandhi, I found that one by one they started leaving. And I was found alone there on the stage when I finished my speech. But they had to make a report to the government had to sanction the arrest of the Bar Council chairman and so on and so forth. I had left Palghar and came to Bombay. Next day I was in Madras arguing a case in the Madras High Court. So my wife telephoned to me. He says, Ram, the police commissioner has called and he says that there's a warrant out for your husband's arrest and we want him. So I said, but you tell the police commissioner that I am in the Madras High Court. Be sure that tomorrow I'll return to Bombay and he can come and arrest me. And do you know what the lawyers of Bombay did? 300 lawyers signed a petition in my absence without my wakalatnama, led by Mr. Palkiwala. They went to the judge and the judge issued an injunction restraining the government from executing their warrant.
Would you like to tell the story?
I reached Bombay, and this is the story that I heard. And believe you me, under the protection of that injunction that I had obtained, I decided that I must go around the country and attack Mrs. Gandhi and her son, and had said that these are criminals who ought to be outlawed from the country if you want to save Indian democracy. Now I must tell you, in appreciation of the judges of India, that
Except
9 high
Narendra.
courts,
Except Narendra.
9 high courts had come to the conclusion by judgments that they were entitled to protect human liberty and constitutional liberties in spite of the declaration of emergency. And one of them was the Bombay High Court. The matter was taken to the Supreme Court of India by Mrs. Gandhi's government and Attorney General, forget his name, I don't really remember his name. And I went and appeared in the Supreme Court for one of the detainees. So when my turn came to address the 5 judges who were sitting on the bench, so I told them, I said, my lords, it will not impress you that I am appearing for one detainee. It will not impress you if I told you that there is a warrant out for my arrest as well. But what might impress you perhaps is that there are thousands and thousands of persons who are innocent and they are rotting in jail. I am appearing for all of them. Then I found that the Chief Justice had a very stupid look on his face. So I turned to the Chief Justice. I said, Mr. Chief Justice, if that doesn't impress you, let me tell you that I am appearing for all 5 of you. He almost fell out of his chair. He said, Mr. Jethmalani, did you say this? I said, yes, my lord, I not only said it, but I am going to repeat it. I repeated it. And then I told them, I said, have you heard of a country called Ghana? Ghana had a Chief Justice who helped the government to draft the preventive detention law. Draft, nothing more. But I said, when that law came into force, the Chief Justice was the first to be picked up under that law. For 2 years, nobody heard of what happened to the Chief Justice. After 2 years, a cryptic announcement appeared in the press that the Chief Justice died of natural causes. I said, my lord, that's the fate which awaits all 5 of you. I have come to rescue you from that fate. And please sit down and listen to me carefully instead of falling out of your chairs. 2 of them had been my juniors. Anyway, when I finished my summing up of my arguments, the last sentence that I told the judges is that, my lords, India's freedom is democracy. They are not yet dead, but they are in the coffin. The government wants to shut the lid of that coffin. But even they are ashamed of doing it. They want you to do it for them. The question is, are you willing to oblige? And on that score, on that note, I finished my argument, and the present BJP leader, Mr. L.K. Advani, wrote to me from jail, what a wonderful, brilliant argument that you made before the judges, because no other lawyer ever made any such argument before. And of course, Mr. L.K. Advani is the most ungrateful man because he is the party to my expulsion from the party.
Would you like to tell the story of after the emergency, you went to meet Mrs. Gandhi and you suggested to her that she should write a letter of apology, and she was drinking coffee and she sneezed, and you said...
No.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's a slightly different story.
Shall I tell you tell the story.
You know, the day the Supreme Court pronounced the judgment, it's called the notorious Jabalpur judgment, in which they said that the courts are totally powerless to protect human liberty. I mean, I call it a declaration of judicial impotence. They made a public declaration that we are impotent, we cannot meet the dictator's actions, and we can do nothing for the human beings. And it is that night that I met my 25 lawyer friends in Palkiwala's house, and I told them that I want to leave this country. He says, but you can certainly leave the country, you don't require our permission. I said, listen, I have not come to you for your permission. I have come to ask you that you are not going to say to people that I am running away because I am a coward. I am quite prepared to be the 203rd lawyer in Nasik jail. But I want to go out of India and speak to the world what is happening to Indian constitution and Indian democracy and how today we are being ruled by criminals. So they said, you go. But Mr. Jethmalani, how will you go? I said, listen, none of you is a criminal lawyer. So you don't know how to go. That night, I was escorted to the airport by no less a person than the Commissioner of Police. He put me in the plane and I safely reached the United States. And I am the only Indian who ever has got political asylum in the United States. And I have reminded Mr. Obama, who has just arrived, that I am the only Indian. Please meet me here if you like.
You call the
And
judges,
now Mrs. Gandhi. Cheers.
you call the judges at that time spineless.
Of course,
Yeah, but what would you call today's judges? You fought so much against the judiciary, corruption in judiciary. You tried to bring in when you were law minister.
Look, first of all, let me tell you one thing. That our society undoubtedly suffers from the disease of corruption. It's a cancer. The higher you are, the richer you are, perhaps it's almost a presumption that you are corrupt. And I don't deny that corruption has crept into the judiciary as well. But I can swear today, honestly, that compared to other departments of our society, other sectors of our society, judges are still angels. Some of them, look at the subordinate judges, what kind of salaries do you give to them? They are living a life of honorable poverty and yet they are able to administer justice. It's a miracle. That is why I have been saying that never appoint these 1 or 2 years standing lawyers to become judges and magistrates. Because ultimately the face of justice is the subordinate judge, not the Supreme Court judge, not the High Court judge. And appoint people of great experience. In England, the senior-most Queen's Counsels today, who earn thousands of guineas every day, they take leave from their work, they are appointed as magistrates in the recorder's court, and they go and sit in the magistrate's court, and the young people come there and learn how justice is administered in the subordinate courts. I have been arguing that appoint experienced people, most experienced people as junior judges in the magistrate's court, and the salary differences between a high court judge and a district judge and a magistrate should be nominal, only to show that you are in a higher position. And the age of retirement of both should be the same, so that there should be no push and no sort of all kinds of illicit canvassing for promotion in our department, in our judicial department. But you asked a very interesting question about Mrs. Gandhi. That I must share.
Yes, this is a very interesting story when you went to her to ask
Darling,
her to
I didn't go
apologize.
to her. No, that's the.
Okay,
there is a reference to that.
She came to you.
You have not had much time to read it, so I'll tell you the story.
I have it, I read it.
The story is that when we returned to power and Mrs. Gandhi was dethroned in the election after the emergency, naturally her crimes were investigated and it was understood that she will probably go to jail. But more than anything else, we found her guilty of breach of parliamentary privilege, and I had to write a judgment against her, sentencing her, but the only sentencing power of parliament was for the duration of the session. So therefore she was in jail for about 3 weeks, and after that she was released. But before that, her friend Antule.
You met in Antule's house in his bedroom.
No, yeah.
On a sofa.
That's right. Now you are catching the truth. Where else can you meet Mrs. Gandhi except in the bedroom? Mr.
I'm not
Antule
here.
came to me and said, Mrs. Gandhi wants to meet you. I said, listen, Central Hall of Parliament is the only place where two members of Parliament can meet. She is most welcome here. So I said, first bring her here. So one day she came, I was doing some little work, and she says, Mr. Jethmalani, what are you doing? You are writing my sort of death warrant or something. No, I said, I'm reading some book of fiction. So she said, I want to meet you. I said, most certainly, I'll meet you. So Antule fixed up a meeting on one cold, wintry night, and he said, it will be at my home. I said, all right. So I reached there at about 11 o'clock in the night, and as usual, I had had my 2 drinks. So when I entered the thin corridor, and on the right-hand side, there was some kind of a room. Obviously, there was a door. So Mr. Antule knocked at that door, and the door opened. And who opened it? Mrs. Gandhi. And he just pushed me into the bedroom and closed the bedroom door behind me.
What was she wearing, sir?
I frankly don't remember what she was wearing. But gallantry required that I put my arm around her and escorted her to the sofa and made her sit there. And I could see that she was very nervous. I said, listen, Mr. Gandhi, let us first settle our terms of conversation. Can I call you Indra and will you call me Ram? She says, yes. Agreed. I said, all right. Let me tell you that tonight we are friends. And if we work out some kind of a compromise, well and good. Otherwise, be sure that tomorrow we will be enemies again. So she says, agreed. I said, I have informed the Prime Minister Desai that I am meeting you tonight. And he has authorized me to work out a settlement with you. Are you prepared? Listen, I said, we don't want to be vindictive. We want to be very soft on you. After all, you come from a family of Nehrus. Be sure that I am giving you the fairest kind of suggestion for compromise that anybody will offer you in the present situation. He says, what is it? I said, apologize to the nation for what you have done, and everything will be withdrawn. Then we'll fight only a political game. So while we were having this serious discussion, Mr. Antule sent us a cup of coffee for both of us. Like, mothers-in-law do that these days to newlyweds. That the guy might be exhausted or something.
So naughty.
I'm not hearing this.
So when she had that coffee, first sip, she started some kind of sneezing or coughing. So I said, Mr. Gandhi, obviously you are allergic to coffee. I said, but I never got as near as the coffee cup did.
No, you forgot.
She said, I'm allergic to you.
No, you said, I think you're allergic to coffee. So she says, no, not to coffee, I'm allergic to you.
Huh. And
then you said, but I never got as close to you as the coffee cup did.
That's right. That's how it is. Absolutely.
Now, your most interesting meeting with Morarji Desai,
Yeah.
who is known for drinking what? And Mr. Jethmalani is known for drinking scotch. So that was their point of difference.
Oh my God. He told me very frankly that I hear that you have, I said, Morarji bhai, I take care of my own health. I am healthier than you. And invariably the man used to talk to me about his sex life, and he used to invariably impress upon me that he left sex life by the age of about 28 or so. I heard it so many times from him. Now listen, she has already given you evidence of my good character. And aren't you surprised that with my contacts with so many girls, I had only 2 wives in life?
How did you manage 2 full-fledged families?
Darling, that requires,
One is tough.
That requires a long lesson.
Okay, let's go back to Moraji Desai.
That's Moraji Bhai. So I told Moraji Bhai one day, I said, Moraji Bhai, his wife's name was Gajra Behan or something. I said, listen, I have heard you tell me that you gave up sex life at the age of 28. If Gajra Behan was my wife, I would have given up at 18.
And what about the time when he told you, he said to you, Mr. Jethmalani, I don't mind you drinking in private, but please do not praise your drink in public. And according to one story, you said to him, Mr. Desai, you stick to your pisky and I'll stick to my whiskey.
Of course, yes. I mean, and he became sick because of what he was. Nature wants you to throw out something and you imbibe it. Whiskey in every religion has been of the gods. But take Christianity, except Islam, which has a rather very serious attitude about drinking. Otherwise, Christianity and others in Hinduism, it was a drink of the gods.
आपको पूछना है, सब जानना चाहते हैं that is there any case or that you have regretted, that you haven't enjoyed doing, and you said, why the hell did I take it?
Really none. Because...
Simranjit Singh Man?
Simranjit
What about
Singh Man?
Simranjit Singh Man? Did you regret defending him? Because
No.
he,
Mr.
in the end,
Gandhi's-
No, but I will-
remember he became delusional
But I will
and
tell you
lost it.
tell you Simranjit Singh Man's story. You see, I have had a special fascination for the Sikhs because I am myself a Sikh in a way. All Sindhi Hindus are
Sindhis
Sikhs
follow the Guru
without those 5 kakas. We are all Sikhs, and Guru Nanak had visited Sindh, and in every Sindhi Hindu temple, you will always find the Guru Granth Sahib. So therefore, Sikhs are historically the defenders of India. And when we developed this Khalistan business and it's becoming a little serious affair, I have done my best to woo the Sikhs, and the amount of service that I did to the Sikhs when Mrs. Gandhi was assassinated is nobody's business. I and my daughter have taken almost dying Sikhs to the All India Medical Institute in Delhi, and to the disgrace of the medical profession, the doctors refused to receive them in the hospital. So I had to take them to private hospitals, and I have served them, and I think it was in my mind that if the Sikhs and the Hindus don't unite in India, India will become totally indefensible. That is why I defended Simranjit Singh Man, and even today Simranjit Singh Man is a very, very grateful person. And you see that Modi's candidates who didn't expect to win anywhere, they won by thumping majorities, but Modi's Amritsar candidate didn't win.
Arun Jaitley.
Me.
Oh,
The cause is me.
because of you.
Of course.
You, wait a
I-
minute, this is
I-
important.
I-
You jeopardized, you
I
sabotaged
told
Arun
him
Jaitley.
that don't
Arun
set up
Jaitley.
this man in Amritsar. He did it against my advice.
We have to end now. I'd like to end with asking you, you've seen the movie Bucket List?
No.
Where there are 2 middle-aged men who decide, they make a bucket list and they decide that their wish list on what they're going to do before the end. What would be your bucket list? What is it that you have not done that you'd like to do?
Listen, my first ambition, almost the last but one ambition in life was to knock out the previous government. And I am very happy that I have succeeded. When I say I have succeeded, my effort has partially contributed to it, but Modi's great, spectacular victory is something to be enjoyed.
Many articles,
And-
many articles written by
And
him as well as speeches
I
around
have
the country.
written in my Sunday Guardian, where I write my weekly piece, which I have not forgotten for the last 400 years, for 400 weeks. 400 weeks I have been writing my piece. And throughout the election campaign, I have supported him to the hilt, and I have said of Modi that he is the most exalted planet in India's horoscope. I have said that he is an avatar who has been sent to us by God.
But you could change your mind at
Having
any time.
said all that,
With your character, you could change your mind
having
anytime.
said all that, when the election results were announced, I wrote in my piece in the Sunday Guardian again, the last paragraph was that Mr. Modi, congratulations on your spectacular success. But so far as I am concerned, please let me tell you that I am living in the departure lounge of God's airport. I want nothing from you, and nothing means nothing. All that I want you is now to fulfill your promises to the people of the country. Your last question that you asked me is
Your bucket list.
that it is my earnest desire and wish that before I die, I get back the black money that has been kept in other countries. And I am free to tell you all today that I am almost a disappointed man, because Modi has put people in charge of that work who don't deserve to be there and who will not be able to accomplish it ever.
Mr. Jethmalani, you have said that the Gandhi family has amassed $15,000 billion abroad.
$1,500 billion.
Dollars abroad. Where is it? Why has it not been unearthed? You've been, you worked on Bofors, then you defended the Hindujas. It's such a long story. We have to end. But could you just give us a glimpse on why that money, which you say is there, why is it so difficult to get?
It is very simple.
Exposed.
Very simple. There is a United Nations Convention Against Corruption, which India signed in 2005. But every international convention requires to be ratified. Unless you file a document of ratification, it doesn't become binding. And I started my litigation in the Supreme Court about black money in 2009. 2011, the judgment was expected. And throughout that period, I was talking about that United Nations Convention. Why is it not being used? Because that convention expressly says that the object of this convention is to destroy the efficacy of the bank's secrecy laws. And I regret to tell you that the judgment of the Supreme Court which I have obtained has clearly said that using the double taxation avoidance treaty will not produce the black money, because the double taxation avoidance treaty only refers to an honest businessman who, by the law of two different countries, is liable to pay tax on the same income in two different countries. For example, an Indian national earns some money in Germany. The German government is entitled to tax him. India is entitled to tax him because he is an Indian national. To avoid these situations for honest businessmen, there are these double taxation avoidance treaties. They have nothing to do with the dacoits who have taken this money and stashed it abroad by money laundering and offenses and bribery and other things. And the trouble is that Mr. Modi's minister, and I am saying it in public, has been talking of the double taxation avoidance treaty ever since he has become the finance minister of India. The man ought to be dismissed if this black money has to be recovered.
We're totally out of time. It was a real treat for the Jaipur Literature Festival to have a legend like Mr. Jethmalani, and it was wonderful to listen to it. Thank you.